Well, here we are for another episode of Make It Happen. How you doing, William?
Doing great. How are you doing?
Good, good. I heard you had 2 inspections today.
Yes, I did.
Really?
Yep.
How'd they go?
It went really well.
Any crazy things out of the ordinary?
No, not necessarily. Well, one thing that was out of the ordinary is the hood vent for the stove cooktop. The seller was telling me it was an air conditioner.
The hood vent? He thought it was an air conditioner?
Yes.
So let's just turn on the hood for the stove cooktop, and that's going to condition the house.
Yep.
All right. It sounds like you had a real kook there. So, all right. So, we've got a few really good topics today. I brought pictures this time. I don't know if everybody's noticed, but we switched seats today. We're going to talk about old roof defects, cracked foundations, a little bit of draining and grade drainage, and some bedroom window stuff.
Yeah, sounds great.
Top it off. Is that good for you?
Sounds good to me.
All right. So this first photo I got pulled up here, this inspector standing on the roof, just take an overview photo. Doesn't look too bad from there. I mean, it looks a little older, doesn't it?
Looks like it's around 15 years old to me, 15 to 20.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it looks, I mean, I'd be surprised if it was less than 20 years just looking at it from that. But let's move on. So a little closer look. And we walk over to the back corner. You can tell it's the backyard, right? And man, look at the degranulation on those shingles.
Yeah, it's pretty severe.
I mean, I wouldn't even want to walk on that. I'd be afraid the inspector would slip, fall off the roof, right? It's probably pretty slippery. What he noted here is the wiring in contact with the ridge there on the hip.
Yep, that's something we see fairly common on most roofs is there's always some type of low voltage wiring. That does look like a low voltage wire to me.
Yeah.
And they
looks like maybe the cable wire from the cable company.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, that shouldn't be touching the roof.
No.
So, no good. Okay, this is a fun photo here. I was kind of disappointed where the inspector put the arrow. I would have preferred the arrow to be right in the middle of that white wire because it was misleading to me. When I first looked at this photo, I didn't notice the white wire coming through the roof. Look at the left side of that white wire right above the chimney. It's coming right out of the shingles.
Yeah, it's tucked right underneath.
It's coming. So it looks like they tried to skip one room to the other and get cable. I mean, that's what it looks like. It looks like an old, like when I was in the Army, we tried to like run the cable from one room to the other by going through the windows. I don't know if you guys ever did that in college, try to steal cable from one room to the other. But I mean, that's pretty messed up, right? We're pulling a wire through the shingles, through the flashing that's above the chimney, bringing it over across the valley flashing, tucking it under the shingles again. And it's causing a couple of issues here. I mean, you can see that debris building up there at the very bottom of the valley flashing. And surely we're not flashed correctly now. It's got to be leaking under there.
Definitely. You can see the valley flashing is rusting over, most likely from water sitting in that flashing for too long and not drying up. And then, yeah, I wouldn't be too surprised if where they poked a hole through the roof for the wire, you have some water seeping in through there.
Looking at the last photo and looking at this photo, I mean, this roof's got to be 30 years old. It's got to be 30 years old. All the paint is basically worn away on the flashings. The shingles are totally deteriorated pretty much all the way around. And it doesn't look like they've really even tried to maintain it. Looky here. So probably a leak in this spot right here. The rake edge flashing, which is the upper flashing on top of that fascia, is bent. Looks like maybe some physical damage there, or maybe that's just peeling paint. I don't know. It looks like it's bent to me. And then there's no flashing there. And then we have a code on that, right, William?
Yes.
So
it's going to be 903.2.1.
Where flashing is required, where that roof covering meets the exterior wall. And that's considered to be an exterior wall. And it should have a kick out there as well. So
one thing I'd also like to mention is that wood materials are typically not permitted to be in contact with the roof and fascias.
Okay.
That's why you typically see them cut like an inch of the fascia out, and on some other homes that you've inspected. That way you don't have continuous water draining and hitting that fascia and making it susceptible to stuff like dry rot and termite damage.
What do you think of this one?
Looks like they took.
What? I don't even.
Looks like they took the lowest bid on this one.
I don't even know about that. This looks like an after. This looks like something done later. I don't think this was done when they installed the roof. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what to say about this. But I mean, I think anybody with common sense can tell this is wrong. Water's going to get under there, and it's just bad. Bad. Moving on. Okay, so this one, we have a plumbing vent coming up through a boot flashing right next to an exhaust vent for either a water heater or a furnace. This inspector in his report said it wasn't painted with UV rated paint, which you're required to do. What's nice is it is an inspector. It does alert you that they've done some plumbing repairs, because that's a newer plumbing vent. So we would like to see that painted. I know, William, you were looking up codes to see if you could even have that plumbing vent that close to the exhaust vent. Really didn't see the code for that. I still don't like it.
I don't like it either.
So,
but I didn't see anything in it in the IRC as far as the chapter on exhaust venting or waste venting prohibiting this.
And this inspector's pretty good with code regulations, and he didn't call that out in his report. So hopefully there isn't a code on that. But we see this all the time, and it's not something we typically call out anyway. So, all right, so this is going to be a section of the report where the inspector is going to note deterioration at the fascia boards. I am a branch 3 structural inspector, and so I can say this is wood rot. And essentially the wood's just rotting out, and they need rain gutters on this. In fact, they need to replace these fascia boards. They don't need to just put Bondo on there. They need to replace these fascia boards, and they need to put rain gutters up. And that's pretty bad there. Look at this. The rafter extension's actually showing deteriorations. There might be termite. I think you might have termites in that one. And so termites like water. And so this one here, another really bad one. And then this is a great shot. He took a picture of the side of the house, and you can see there's no rain gutter, and you can see the line on the ground where the water's hitting the ground and really just splattering all over the place. All right, so the roof had a lot of problems. Not surprised to find a little drip pan in the attic to catch the drip. And of course, this inspector called out the droppings from, I don't know what kind of animal that was, but there's some droppings there. So good photo. Last thing on the roof, this inspector was very thorough. He put that there was wood shake shingles underneath that asphalt composition. Not supposed to do that. So did a pretty good job here on this report. All right, let's move over to the next phase of our podcast, foundation cracks. All right, so photo number 1 here. This inspector got into the crawl space, took his overview photo. Looks pretty nice. I mean, I like seeing a crawl space look like that when I crawl in there.
Yeah.
Those are the favorites, right?
Right, definitely.
You're like, oh, there's not going to be much wrong with this one. But if you really look closely at the right side beam, that right side beam's kind of leaning a little bit. Leaning just a little.
So is the post.
Yeah, the post, a little bit too. And so
I know we did have grading and grade drainage issues on this home. This is the same home, correct?
Yep. Well, I know you're going to jump ahead, but so as you go a little further, there's cracks. I'm going to show you 3 cracks he reported on in this report. And there's a second one. There's a third one. So one of the things that's very important for home inspectors is not to put adjectives on cracks.
But those are typical cracks.
Typical cracks is okay for you to say typical because you see these cracks a lot. As an inspector, you're kind of an expert, really a generalist, but you're an expert on cracks, right?
Yeah.
And so or at least you're an expert on what typical cracks are. And this is what I like to see is it a horizontal crack? Is it a vertical crack? Is it a diagonal crack? Is there separation at the crack? How wide is it? It's a 1/4 inch wide crack. If you're specific about the crack, you can do that. But you can't tell us it's a good crack, bad crack. Hairline crack is one you're not allowed to use. So anyway, there were 3 cracks on this. I really wasn't too concerned about these cracks. What would you be concerned about in regards to these cracks, William?
I don't want them to get bigger.
I wouldn't want them to get bigger either. So what would cause them to get bigger?
So what would cause them to get bigger would be water getting into the cracks and rusting out the rebar.
Yep, exactly. Or something that not having something written in your report that could be causing these cracks to happen. We live in California, so we have a lot of earthquakes. Houses kind of shake, rattle, rock and roll. And so we get cracks because concrete isn't bendy, really. I mean, some of it can, but
It's not supposed to.
But right. And the ground does move, and so are concrete cracks. But one of the things we can control is the grade drainage. And if you look at the bottom of this photo right here, you can see the efflorescence. And on this one here, at the bottom of that crack, the soil even looks damp. And you can see that efflorescence where water's moving through the concrete and then evaporating and leaving like a salty mineral deposit, which we call efflorescence. And that was part of the conversation we had about the no rain gutters and the water falling down on the side of the house. And we looked up code on that, William. What was that code again?
Well, according to the IRC 2018 401.3, water should fall, or moisture, the grading should fall 6 inches every 10 feet away from the home. And now in this case, we don't have 10 feet of grading. So I believe we really should have some sort of swale or landscape drains here on the side of this house.
Yeah. I mean, if we can pull that other picture up, what is it? Which picture was that?
That was picture
8.5. You can see here that there is no way to get grading to slope 10 feet away from the home because there's a block wall. The property line's right there. So the code specifically does state if you can't do that, you need to have underground drains. In this case, rain gutters would be all right, right? I mean, with a drain down to the end, pushing the water out to the street. It'd really be nice to have some drains in the concrete there, sloping to those drains. But so those kinds of things can cause problems with the foundation, and we don't like to see all that. So,
yeah, it can affect the tensile strength of the rebar and the walls and
yep.
Stuff like that.
All right, last but not least, let's talk about these bedroom windows. We don't get this every day, but these bedroom windows are awesome, right? As an ex-firefighter, these are near and dear to my heart because what did I do when I was a firefighter? I went into burning buildings with a big tank on my back, a helmet, and all the firefighting gear, and I had to crawl through windows like these. Well, it's really hard to crawl through a window that's not big enough to crawl through without breaking it. And so there is some code here. The IRC in chapter 310.1 says emergency escape and rescue openings are required in bedrooms, and they got to open 20 inches wide. Well, if they can't, and there's other codes here. They got to be 24 inches high, and they got to have a net clear opening of 5.4 inches. So, I mean, these windows might be 5.4 inches in opening. They definitely are 24 inches high, but they aren't wide enough for a big person to crawl out of there or a fireman to get in to save your life. And so this is deemed not appropriate for a bedroom window, inadequate egress for emergency exits. And I thought that was pretty cool that he found that. And so those are the pictures we have there. So let's wrap up our podcast. Please, if you are enjoying this content, we're going to do a lot of work to provide this to you. Like, subscribe, leave your comments. If you got something you want us to talk about that's interesting or you found a problem with your house, let us know in the comments. And if we deem it worthy to be on the podcast here, we'll go ahead and talk about it and we'll pull it up. And we'll see if some inspectors are finding those things as well. So until the next one, William.
Yep.
We'll see you then.
Yep. See you then.